They will never see the hours that broke you. They will only see the moment you rise. The world applauds the peak, but it forgets the climb. It worships the result, but it ignores the repetition. And it will call you lucky when you've bled for years in silence. But you'll know the truth. You'll know it wasn't fate. It wasn't fortune. It was forged. Hour by hour. Step by step. Choice by choice. Because behind every triumph is a storm of invisible habits. Rituals born in solitude, sharpened by failure, and repeated until they become inevitable. Do you want to succeed? Then forget motivation. Forget hype. Forget waiting for the right time. You don't need permission. You need systems. Because it's not the goal that transforms you. It's the grind behind the goal. And that grind is written into your nervous system. Understand this. Your brain is a survival machine. Not built for greatness, but for efficiency. It doesn't want you to succeed. It wants you to conserve energy. To stay comfortable. To stay predictable. To stay the same. And so, every time you try to change, it resists. But that resistance is not your enemy. It is the gateway. Because inside your brain, inside the folds of your prefrontal cortex and the ancient circuitry of your basal ganglia, lies the most powerful truth in psychology. What you do repeatedly becomes who you are. This is not a metaphor. It is neuroscience. Every thought you think, every choice you make, every habit you repeat sends signals down neural pathways, strengthening synapses like rivers carving through rock. And over time, those pathways become highways. Those highways become automatic. And that automation becomes identity. Your habits are not what you do. They are what you become. That is why change feels so hard. You are not just fighting behavior. You are fighting identity. But here's the truth most people never understand. You don't need to be perfect to become powerful. You need to be consistent enough to become automatic. Because automation is the engine of destiny. When Michael Jordan stepped on the court, he didn't rise to the occasion. He fell to his training. Every move, every pivot, every shot, it wasn't improvisation. It was memory. Locked into muscle. Coded into instinct. Because he had done it a million times before the lights ever came on. That's what habits do. They remove the need for willpower. They bypass motivation. They embed greatness into your nervous system. And yet, most people waste their lives waiting to feel ready. They wait for clarity. They wait for confidence. They wait for someone to give them a reason. But the truth is, action precedes clarity. Repetition precedes belief. And habits precede success. Think of Thomas Edison, testing thousands of filaments before the light bulb sparked. Not because he was chasing genius, but because he understood the compounding power of trial, error, and iteration. It wasn't talent that won. It was the habit of relentless refinement. Or consider Henry Ford. He didn't invent the car. He revolutionized its creation. He didn't dream bigger, he systemized smarter. Because Ford knew, reliability isn't sexy, but it scales. Excellence is not an act. It is a process. And if your daily process is random, your results will be accidental. But if your process is intentional, your destiny becomes mathematical. So ask yourself, what do your habits say about your future? Because the man or woman you want to become, they already live by a different code. They wait with purpose. They plan before the world distracts them. They train when they don't feel like it. They say no to what doesn't serve. They do the boring work brilliantly. Not because they're superhuman, but because they've made it normal. And here's the twist. Once a habit is wired deep enough, it doesn't feel like effort. It feels like breathing. That's what neuroscience calls automaticity. The point where a behavior becomes reflex, where the brain no longer needs to think. It just does. That's where champions live. Not in the arena, but in the reps no one sees. The mornings they rise early, the meals they measure, the thoughts they reshape, the mindset they reinforce, over and over and over again. You want change? Then stop negotiating with the old you. Because your brain will try to pull you back, to ease, to comfort, to laziness. And every time you give in, you cast a vote for stagnation. But every time you push forward, no matter how small, you cast a vote for evolution. And those votes, they add up. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually, you will wake up and realize you're not pretending anymore. You are that person. You didn't fake it. You formed it. But this transformation, it doesn't come in a flash. It comes in the shadows, in the quiet, daily war between who you've been and who you're becoming. And it begins with one decision: to stop living by default and start living by design. You see, most people live in a loop. Wake up, repeat yesterday, react to life, sleep, repeat. They don't lead their life, they survive it. They aren't choosing, they're drifting. They're not sculpting their future, they're recycling their past. And that's not a flaw in character. That's how the brain conserves energy. It takes what you've done before, packages it into a habit, and runs it on autopilot. Efficient, predictable, comfortable. But comfort is the silent killer of potential. Because nothing extraordinary is born in routine survival. Greatness begins the moment you interrupt the pattern. And the first pattern you must break is identity. You will never build a life beyond what you believe you deserve. So long as you see yourself as average, you will act accordingly. So long as you believe success is for others, you'll keep sabotaging the moment it comes close. That's not bad luck. That's self-image. And your self-image is built by your habits. It's not enough to want success. You have to prove to yourself, through action, that you're the kind of person who earns it. Do you think Abraham Lincoln became the man who freed a nation by waiting to feel confident? He was born in a log cabin, grew up in poverty, faced ridicule, failure, loss. But he wrote, he studied, he persevered. Not because he was sure of himself, but because he believed in what he could become. That belief wasn't gifted. It was earned through daily, deliberate action. And that is the key. Identity isn't fixed. It's formed. And it is formed through evidence. Every workout completed is evidence. I am disciplined. Every book read is evidence. I am a learner. Every early morning is evidence. I control my time. Every promise kept to yourself is a vote cast for the future version of you. It's not about grand gestures. It's about consistency. Because consistency is the language the brain understands. And it's the only way to rewire the circuits of identity. But don't confuse consistency with perfection. You will fail. You will fall. You will miss days. That doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. What matters is that you return. That you build the habit of beginning again. Because the strongest neural pathways are not built by never falling. They're built by rising again and again and again. That's how resilience is formed. And resilience is the foundation of every great life. So stop waiting for a breakthrough. Create one by showing up when it would be easier to quit. Because every time you override comfort, you train the prefrontal cortex, the command center of discipline. You teach your brain, this is who I am now. Not because the world demanded it, but because you declared it. You become the sculptor of your own neurobiology. And when you understand that, When you truly see that the brain is not fixed but fluid, not a prison but a moldable machine. You stop trying to escape your life, and you start engineering it. This is the gift of neuroplasticity. You are not trapped in who you were. You are rewiring, reshaping, rebuilding, every single day. But neuroplasticity doesn't care what you say. It watches what you do. It's not words, it's repetition. It's not goals, it's systems. It's not hope, it's habit. That's why vision alone is never enough. You can write affirmations on your mirror. You can journal your dreams. But if you don't act, the brain discards it as fantasy. Your nervous system needs proof. And proof comes through motion. That's how clarity is found, not before the action, but through it. You don't wait to feel ready. You move. You stumble. You learn. And every action sharpens the vision like steel on stone. Action fuels clarity. Clarity fuels identity. Identity fuels consistency. And consistency fuels the life you've imagined. It's all connected. One habit. One ritual. One moment of decision. And the brain begins to reshape. Not overnight, but inevitably. Because the most powerful force in the world is not speed, it's direction. And once your habits align with your vision, it's only a matter of time. Not if. When? Not if. When? Because when you live in alignment, when your actions reflect your future instead of your past, time is no longer your enemy. It becomes your ally. And every day becomes a quiet compounding miracle. But here's the truth that separates the great from the mediocre. It's not just about what you do. It's about why you do it. Because habits built on fear eventually rot. But habits built on purpose, they endure. You cannot run on discipline alone. Discipline is the engine, but purpose is the fuel. If you don't know what you're fighting for, you'll burn out in the middle of the war. You'll find yourself hitting the gym, chasing goals, grinding through work. Not because it drives you, but because it distracts you. And distraction is the enemy wearing ambition's mask. That's why vision matters. Not the kind of vision you scribble on a whiteboard once a year, but the kind that haunts your thoughts. The kind that lives in your gut like fire. The kind that whispers when the world is silent. You were born for more than this. When your habits are connected to that level of purpose, they stop feeling like chores. They become sacred. Every repetition becomes a step towards something eternal. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't march through hatred and danger because it was a productive habit. He did it because his vision was non-negotiable. He was pulled forward by something bigger than comfort. And when you're pulled by vision, you don't need to be pushed by pressure. You choose the pain. You embrace the struggle. Because you understand the price of staying the same is greater than the cost of growth. But that kind of vision doesn't come from scrolling through social media. It doesn't come from mimicry or envy. It comes from silence. From asking the deeper questions. From staring into the mirror and demanding more from yourself than the world ever will. You ask, what breaks my heart? What awakens my soul? What am I willing to suffer for? Because the moment you know what you're willing to suffer for, you become dangerous, unstoppable. Not because you're fearless, but because your fear finally has a rival. That's what gives your habits meaning. That's what turns the mundane into the meaningful. When Kobe Bryant woke up at 4 a.m. to train, it wasn't because he was addicted to basketball. It was because he knew who he was. He knew why he was here. And once you know who you are, you don't chase discipline, it chases you. That's what makes habits stick. They become tied to your identity, anchored to your purpose, and pointed at your vision. This is how lasting transformation happens. Not through hacks, not through hype, but through alignment. If you want to change your life, don't start with the behavior. Start with the belief. Start with the vision. Start with a purpose so deep it makes quitting feel like betrayal. Then reverse engineer it. Ask yourself, if I were already that person, how would I act? What would I eat? How would I speak? How would I spend my mornings? How would I spend my attention? Then begin to live like that person. Now. Not when it's convenient. Not when it's perfect. Now. Because your brain doesn't wait to believe after results come. It starts believing the moment you behave like it's already true. That's the paradox of change. You don't become successful then act like it. You act like it and become successful. And every time you act in alignment, you shrink the gap between who you are and who you were born to be. This is how habits turn into transformation. You don't just change your schedule. You don't just change your diet. You don't just change your productivity. You change your story. Because the habits you build are not just about performance. They are about permission. Permission to rise. Permission to expand. Permission to stop apologizing for your ambition. And when the world tells you to slow down, to settle, to shrink, to blend in, your habits will stand as silent proof. I am not average. I am becoming something more. Not because of one breakthrough, not because of one viral moment, but because you made the decision to build a lifestyle of greatness. One brick at a time. One neural pathway at a time. One sacred habit at a time. But if you think success is a straight line, you're not ready for the real climb. Because the moment you commit, life will test you. Circumstances will shift. Plans will fall apart. The world will not move out of your way just because you've decided to rise. That's when most people fold. Because they built habits for control, not for adaptability. They train for perfection, not for pressure. But the ones who thrive, they don't just build routines. They build resilience. They don't cling to rigid systems. They master flexible discipline. They don't say, I'll do it if everything goes right. They say, I'll do it especially when everything goes wrong. Because they understand a truth forged in the fires of history. The strong are not those who never fall. They are those who rise faster, stronger, smarter each time. Look at Winston Churchill. He led through war, chaos, doubt. He was ridiculed, exiled, silenced. But he returned, sharper, bolder, more unshakable. Because his mindset wasn't built on comfort. It was built on conviction. He adapted. And in that adaptability, he found endurance. In that endurance, he shaped history. This is where your habits must evolve. They cannot be fragile rituals that break when life gets messy. They must be adaptable principles, designed to survive stress, change, failure. Because success is not a static destination. It is a moving target. And your habits must learn to move with it. If you can't get to the gym, do push-ups in your room. If your schedule collapses, find 10 minutes of stillness. If you fall off track, return the next day, without shame, without story, without excuses. This is what separates amateurs from professionals. The bounce back. And that bounce is powered by more than just discipline. It is powered by perspective. Because when everything is stripped away, when life beats you down, when nothing seems to work, there is one force that can still lift you: gratitude. Not the fake kind. Not the passive, surface-level affirmations. But the raw, anchored awareness that even now, you are building. Even now, there is oxygen in your lungs. Even now, there is progress beneath the pain. Gratitude is not weakness. It is weaponized awareness. It is how you stay connected to the reason you began. It is how you transform suffering into strength. Because when you start to see even your struggle as sacred, Your habits stop being chores. They become a form of worship, a daily thank you to the future. You stop asking, "Why is this hard?" You start saying, "Thank you for the chance to grow." That shift is everything. It rewires the brain. Because the same neural circuits used to complain can be trained to appreciate. And when you wire gratitude into your system, you create emotional durability. The grind no longer breaks you, it builds you. Because now, the pain has context. Now, the discomfort has meaning. And meaning is the antidote to burnout. Do you think Nelson Mandela survived 27 years in prison because he loved suffering? No. He endured because he assigned purpose to the pain. Because he understood the weight of the cause, and that no habit, no sacrifice, no routine was beneath that mission. That's what happens when vision meets gratitude. You stop performing habits to check a box. You perform them to stay aligned with your mission. And when your mind is aligned, you stop needing outside validation. You stop chasing applause. Because you are the evidence. You know who you are becoming. And every action, even the smallest one, becomes sacred. That's the power of integration. When your vision, your values, and your daily actions are no longer fighting each other. They move in unison. And your brain, it follows. Because you are no longer living as a fractured version of yourself. You are whole. And wholeness is where transformation lives. But remember, this path is not easy. You will be tempted by shortcuts. You will be seduced by speed. You will watch others appear to rise faster, with less struggle. Ignore it. Because speed without structure leads to collapse. And shortcuts cut off the lessons you were meant to learn. The right way is rarely the fastest, but it is the most permanent. And permanence is what rewired habits are all about. Not fleeting change, not surface upgrades, but internal metamorphosis. That's the difference between doing something for a result and doing it because it's who you are now. The moment your habits become identity, the transformation is no longer fragile. You can lose everything. The money, the title, the audience, and still rebuild because the system lives in you. You are the system. You are the structure. You are the rhythm. And when that happens, you are no longer afraid of starting over. Because you know you carry the blueprint within your brain. The success wasn't out there. It was inside you the whole time. Hidden in your habits, waiting to be awakened. The success was never out there. It was buried beneath layers of hesitation, distraction, and fear. Waiting for the day you'd stop seeking miracles and start practicing mastery. Because mastery is not found in motivation. It's not found in hype. It's found in repetition without applause. The greatest among us are not the ones who sprint hardest. They are the ones who outlast. Because they understand the law the world has forgotten. The long game always wins. We live in a culture obsessed with immediacy. The next shortcut. The next dopamine hit. The next hack. But shortcuts rob you of the wiring that real growth requires. If it doesn't challenge your patterns, it cannot rewire your brain. Mastery is a long obedience in the same direction. Nietzsche wrote that over a century ago. And today, it matters more than ever. Because most will start, few will finish, and only a handful will stay when the initial thrill fades. When the progress is invisible. When the results are delayed. When no one is watching. But that's where legends are born. It's not about intensity. It's about frequency. It's not about crushing it once. It's about showing up again and again and again. Until excellence becomes your resting state. Until high standards are no longer an effort. They're just how you live. That's what mastery is. It's not perfection. It's permanence. It's building the skill to stay steady through storms. To keep building when others get bored. To keep learning when others think they already know. Because the moment you think you've arrived, you've stopped evolving. And evolution, neurobiologically, is the secret. Because your brain doesn't peak in your 20s. It doesn't lock in one state forever. It adapts to what you ask of it. If you keep asking for comfort, it will shrink. If you keep asking for challenge, it will grow. Do you understand what that means? It means you are never finished. You are never stuck. You are neurochemically capable of reinventing yourself every single day. And if that doesn't light a fire in your soul, then you haven't been listening. Because you are not here to repeat the past. You are here to transcend it. You are not here to survive. You are here to design. And every day, your habits are either pulling you back into old patterns or launching you forward into your future. Every time you choose focus over distraction, discipline over impulse, deliberate action over passive motion, you are winning. You may not see it today. You may not feel it tomorrow. But habits compound. And compounding is not linear. It's explosive. The day will come when the world looks at you and says, "You're so lucky." And you'll smile, because you'll know the truth. It wasn't luck. It was built. In the shadows. In the silence. In the repetition no one saw. It was forged in the decisions you made when quitting felt easier. When doubt was louder than belief. When no one clapped for you, but you showed up anyway. Because your vision demanded it. Because your purpose required it. Because your future self was counting on it. And now, that future self is real. You didn't just dream. You constructed. You didn't just try. You transformed. And in doing so, you've proven something rare. Something sacred. Something the world tries to silence. That your habits are holy. That discipline is divine. That greatness is not gifted. It is earned through the fierce, patient repetition of purpose. So keep going. Keep stacking the small wins. Keep casting votes for the person you are becoming. Because that person, they are closer than you think. They are already alive. Inside your choices. Inside your rituals. Inside the wiring of your nervous system. You are not building habits. You are building you. And the new you isn't found in a single breakthrough. It's revealed through every repetition done with intention. You are not building habits. You are building you. And the greatest construction you will ever complete is not a company, not a legacy, not a name that echoes through time. It is the reconstruction of your mind. Because once the mind changes, everything else follows. And this is your time. Not next year. Not after the fear subsides. Now. Because if you're waiting for the perfect moment, you've already lost. The perfect moment is a myth told to the hesitant. And hesitation is the assassin of potential. The life you want is not waiting for conditions to align. It's waiting for you to decide. And the decision is this. Will you stay in the loop of your past? Or will you break it, bit by bit, habit by habit, day by day, until your brain no longer remembers the old you? Because here's the truth no one tells you. Change feels unnatural at first. Because it is. You are literally rewiring your neural circuitry. You are pulling energy away from old connections, thoughts, beliefs, behaviors, and investing it in new ones. And your brain will resist. It will ache. It will question. It will fight for what feels familiar. But that discomfort, it's not a sign to stop. It's the signal that rewiring is working. Like a muscle being broken down to grow stronger. Your habits are tearing away the weaker parts of you to reveal the strength you've carried all along. So stop asking, is this supposed to feel easy? And start asking, is this building the person I must become? Because you already know. Deep down, you know what you need to do. You've always known. It's in the quiet moments. When no one is watching. When the world is asleep and your conscience is loud. It speaks. It asks you to rise. To take responsibility. To stop waiting for external change and become the internal revolution. To become the person who doesn't need to be pushed. Because they're pulled by a future so clear, so vivid, so unshakable. They cannot live another day out of alignment. That's who you are now. You've seen the science. You felt the truth. And now you hold the blueprint. It is not magic. It is not mystery. It is motion. One habit. One thought. One micro action at a time. Stack them. Refine them. Repeat them. Until your very biology becomes a declaration of your purpose. Let every step you take say, I am no longer who I was. I am not a slave to old wiring. I do not negotiate with laziness, fear, or weakness. I rise. I build. I rewire. I am becoming, every day, someone the old me would not recognize. And I am not done. You are not done. Because now you know. Success is not found in the finish line. It is forged in the footsteps. It's the wake up when it hurts. The rep when you're tired. The book when your mind wants a scream. The breath when the anxiety hits. The calm in the chaos. The choice to continue. This is the neuroscience of greatness. Consistency rewires chemistry. Discipline sculpts identity. Purpose fuels endurance. And repetition creates destiny. So when it's dark, walk forward. When it's heavy, lift anyway. When it's slow, persist. Because if you can hold the line when no one sees, you will soon rise in a way no one can ignore. Not because it was easy, but because you became undeniable. And when you do, when the world looks at you with awe, confusion, admiration, you'll know the secret. That it wasn't a breakthrough. It was a system. It was biology. It was habit. It was you. Now go and build. Not just a better routine. Not just a better mindset. But a better you. Relentlessly. Deliberately. Unapologetically. You're not chasing success anymore. You're becoming it. One habit at a time. One day at a time. For life.